In today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use new tools to create and customize your own developer or publisher homepage on Steam. These homepages are something that players can find by clicking in the right-hand column here on either the developer or the publisher. If you've got a homepage set up, clicking on that will take you to that homepage where players can follow you to get notified about new releases and find all of the games that you've already released on Steam. This example here, this is Team 17. This is the existing homepage that they have set up on Steam. And so what I'm going to do is show how to use the new tools to create a new, richer presence on Steam. The way you'll do this is by going to the Admin tab, where you'll find an option for Creator Home V2. Clicking on here will take you to a dashboard for managing Creator Home pages in this new system. You'll be able to create and manage more than one, so you can have one live while you're working on an updated version of it. Let's say you want to rearrange the games to promote during a winter sale, or you have a new product coming out that you want to put it to the top of your page. You can create and manage multiple of these home pages at the same time. I'll start by creating a new one. You'll need an internal name, so this is just helpful for being able to keep track of what this homepage is intended to do, whether this is your kind of default or whether you're creating a custom special promotional homepage. I'm just going to call this the new default, and we hit save. Once you're at this step, it takes you to the new tools, where there's a little welcome with some links to documentation and a brief overview on how things work. You'll also notice immediately below that, there's a section called Linked App List, and it shows 335. In this case, for Team 17, that means all of the games, DLC, soundtracks, demos that are associated with the Team 17 homepage. Those are the set of apps that you will be allowed to put and display and organize on your page. Below that is a section called Page Background. Within here, there's options for setting and managing the background of your overall page. And then below this, there's a set of page contents. And by default, there's a number of different sections that automatically show the games in a bunch of different ways. So let's start by walking through what those defaults do, and then we can look at how to add to them or customize them for your needs. In the upper right-hand corner of these tools is a button called Live Preview. This is a hugely useful tool for helping you work on these pages because it gives you a live real-time preview of your page as you work on it. One of the coolest things is as you work in the right-hand side here in your editing tools, you'll see as I hover over these different sections, it highlights in the real-time preview to show which section I'm currently hovering over in the editor tools. This makes it fairly easy to recognize where you want to work. And if you want to jump to it, you can click this reveal button and it'll jump down and highlight that section. So you can see now I've got the upcoming games section highlighted. Let's move back up to the top of the page and we can kind of go through these sections one by one and look at how they're set up and how they work. So popular titles by default is this thing that we call a trailer carousel. And this shows games one game at a time, automatically scrolls through, playing the trailer for that game. By default, it's set to automatically populate with the most popular games. So it is already just doing that for Team 17 here, showing the most popular games. And as I flip through, it's all the best-selling games that are associated with Team 17's page automatically. The next couple of sections, on your wish list and recommended for you, these are actually kind of challenging to preview as a game developer because you already own everything. I can't really have the game on my wish list if I already own it. It's hard to recommend anything to me because I already own everything from Team 17. You'll just have to trust that these will populate properly for players. If we crack them open in the editor, you can see they're set to populate automatically, this bright blue toggle here. And they are personalized, wish-listed games. And the other one here is populate automatically, personalized, recommended by tags. Each of these sections, you'll notice when you have this option set to populate automatically, you can hit the drop down and there's a lot of different ways to populate that. And we'll go through some of those options in a minute. Moving on down the page, just examining these sections, this one is called Set of Creator Lists. If you had previously set up a developer or publisher homepage on Steam and you had created lists, this section will automatically show all of those that are currently set to be visible. So lists, I'll just kind of click on one here. Team 17 had created a list of award winners. So if I click on that, I will be taken to that page where they have listed out, these are all the games that have won some kind of award. So you can create any number of lists for any number of reasons and name them whatever you want, put whatever games that you want on there. You can see there's some lists where Team 17 has created for Play with Friends or Total Wormage, which is their collection of all the worm-related games. Moving down, the next automatic section is called Current Specials. And so this just automatically populates with games that are on discounted, sorted by popularity. So this will just automatically show you players, whatever games you make that are on sale, sorted by what's selling the best right now. The next section is called New Releases. Again, it's set to automatically populate with releases sorted by release date. So it's just everything in the order that you've released it. This does include DLC. So if you publish a whole bunch of DLC, then you'll see that takes up quite a bit of spots if you've released a number of those. We can customize this and add filters so that we can specify to not include DLC or just include DLC or by genre if we want to go that way. I'll show some more examples of that in a few minutes as well. Continuing down with the default sections here, the next one is called Upcoming, and it is just set to automatically populate with Upcoming sorted by release date. So in this case, Wraith Ops is going to be the next released game, followed by Skinwalker, First Blood, and so on and so forth. The next and final default section that you can customize is called Free Demos. So this shows all of the demos that are available by Team 17, and they are, let's see how they're sorted. They are sorted by release date. So the newest one is here on the left. And you can see there is a filter for this section that is set must have app type demo. So I'll show you how these filters work a little bit more in just a minute. And then finally on the page is this tabbed section with filters and then a couple of different sort orders for popularity, upcoming, discount amount, most recent. This appears for every homepage by default. And so you don't have to worry about customizing this, and players can always find all of your games here. There's a cool new feature where under Preferences, players can choose to say hide items in my library. So then it will only show things that are not owned by the player that's viewing. So if they want to kind of complete their library of stuff that you make, that's an easy way for them to get into that view. All right, so now let's look at customizing your page and making some changes and adding new sections. I'm going to start with the top of the page and show you how to customize the page background. I've prepared a couple of things here for Team 17 since they have some particular colors that they use for their brand, maybe some imagery. So I'll show you a couple of examples of what you could do. I'm going to start by, I just created a document here with some of the colors that Team 17 uses. So I'm going to set the background. I'm going to click Edit Overall Background Color, and I'm going to set that to the Team 17 purple. And you can see that immediately show up in the live preview on the left-hand side here. You'll notice that there's a couple of bars of data that just appear here that won't show publicly. They're just reminding you that you're seeing a view that the public is not seeing. All right, so we've made our page purple, but what if we want to make it more interesting and give it some kind of cool imagery? We can pick a screenshot from one of our games and upload that. Or you could create some very customized, deliberate artwork to put in the background. So you can see as soon as I upload the image, that sits on top of the colored background. So you can do some interesting things where you fade from, if you upload an image that has like a transparent kind of fading edge or something like that, then you can have a nice transition between the background image and your background color. You also have some settings here for background image tiling. So I can set it to say repeat vertically. This is a strange image to do that with, but you can kind of see the effect of how that works. You can also set it back there to just one big image, cover and blur. So you'll see that it kind of has a nice gradient mask at the edges and it blurs out. So it gives you kind of some color and texture back there without adding too much visual noise. So you may want to do that if that just adds a little bit more interest and texture to the top of your page. Depending on what color you made your background, you can also customize the arrow colors. So let's say you made your background a very light color, then you can make your arrows dark to make sure that there's contrast and that people can see the arrows and click through the carousels. There's a few other customization options here, like below these carousels, there's some different little options for like the little thumbnails that show you how many items are in there, things like that. Let's move on to the contents itself. Each section can have its own background as well. Most are disabled by default so that they can take up the whole row. But current specials here is an example where we've set a default background color. And so you can switch here to the background tab within that to see that there's a background gradient top and a background gradient bottom set for this section. And you can change that to whatever you want, whatever makes sense for your brand. I'm going to try a couple of variations of Team 17's colors here so that we can, maybe this makes it a little bit more appropriate than the tan color. They also have an alpha channel, so you can set it to a fixed color, but make it semi-transparent if you want, if you don't want it to be as intense over the background. So we've got some cool little options there. I can also change the label color, so that's the title of this section. So in this case, it's the current specials text. So I'm going to set that over here by putting a bright yellow color. It's a nice contrast with their purple. So you can see there's a number of different options there. Also, like I did with the page background, you can upload an image here if you want and set that. Maybe let's try doing that on a different section. Let's take the upcoming titles. Let's switch to the background. So you can see by default, the background is disabled. And as soon as I untick that, you can see how the carousel got a little bit narrower to allow for background image color to show up around it. I'm going to save my progress. You can see down here at the bottom of the screen, there's a save button that has turned yellow. It will eventually get even more angry and remind me to save, lest I lose some of the customization I've done. Let's go ahead and try uploading a background image. So you can see that appear behind there. And if you have a very subtle image, then maybe that's enough to just leave it that way. Again, you have a bunch of different options. So you could upload, say, a pattern and just have it repeat back there. Or you can use this one image cover and blur, which again gives it kind of a nice little gradient and blurry imagery without being too prominent or too detailed and fighting for your attention. For each of these sections, the other thing that you can customize is the layout. And I'll switch to the layout tab here to show you. By default, it's using this carousel of 4 items, but you can also switch to these other types here. So let's try a carousel of 3 tall items. And if I click on that, you see, boom, I get big, tall capsule images, and it's still a carousel, so I can flip through there. I could switch to one detailed item, which becomes this very big and tall section. I'm not sure why it doesn't default to a carousel, but we can flip that on, and now it's a carousel. It also defaults to these 2 rows, so we can switch that to 1 row. Now I've got a single carousel through all of the upcoming games in this very big and rich and detailed view. You'll notice there's these 4 kind of default layouts, and then there's a lot of different detailed options down below. The presets are just toggling on and off different configuration options below. So as you switch between these, you can see different options getting toggled in the in the settings below here. All right, so we'll just go back to our grid of 4. Maybe let's change that to 3 so they're a little bit bigger. There we go. That looks pretty. The other thing that we identified earlier, we were flipping through new releases and we saw that that was including things like DLC. Let's say we want to make this section only show games because we, for most users browsing through DLC for a game they don't own is not that exciting. So let's take a look at new releases. I'm going to click reveal to bring that up to the top of my live preview. And I'm going to expand that. You can see that we have set to manually or automatically populate releases sorted by release date. And then there's no filter. So it's just showing all apps based on release date. I'm going to hit edit filter. And now we go into this filter editing dialog where you have a whole bunch of robust options. The default is choosing must have with nothing selected. You could also say must not have. So you can have lots of powerful choices here, and you can also have and operators. So let's start with just a single simple filter, must have, and you can choose then from a list of tags, or you can type in here to narrow down. And so I'm going to narrow down to game, and I'm looking for a type called app type game. And once I select that, you can see in the preview of this filter box, it's now showing me that only 113 items match that filter. Remember, in general, there's 335 things associated with this homepage. So it's definitely filtering down. That's what I want. So let's click OK. You can see in the live preview some things updated. And now, as I flip through, these are only games. No DLC present here. So great. Let's say we want to add a new section of just the soundtracks that Team 17 makes. So let's go ahead and click add a new section. Now, when you're adding a new section, there's a number of different types of section that you can add, and these all do something slightly different. So you can kind of play with some of these sections to have different types of content. Let's say you want a text section that describes your developer ethos or what you stand for, what kind of games you make. You can do that. You can also have an images section where you can upload a bunch of screenshots or images from your popular games, things like that. For this purposes of this tutorial, I'm just going to go for games, DLC demos, etc. So this is a section of apps. Click confirm. You can see now there's an empty section here on the left. By default, we default to manually add games so that it will be empty. But in this case, I want it to populate automatically. When I do that, it defaults to releases sorted by release date. So let's say if we're going to go for soundtracks, we kind of want the most popular. So let's switch this to automatically populate by popular. So it's going to be sorted by revenue. And then let's add a filter. Must have. We call soundtracks music as the app type within Steam. So I go app type music. That's my filter. So there's 38 soundtracks available from Team 17. So click OK. And now you can see it updates over here on the left. And now these are all soundtracks. So I can go to layout. Let's pick some format that's going to look good here. We can make them a little bigger. Maybe that's too big. Let's go back to 3 items. This section also needs a title because we're showing soundtracks, but we don't explain that. So to edit the title for any section, you'll notice up here, there's a little pencil next to the default title. If I click that, then I get some options here. By default, we give you a bunch of pre-translated terms. So I can type in here to filter down to soundtracks. So that's great. I can apply that as a title now and it's already translated, so I don't have to add any translations. And I know that customers, regardless of what language they speak, will be able to tell what that section is. So we'll confirm, and now I've got a section for that. I'm going to go ahead and save. You see how the save button has become quite angry. It's been a while since I last saved. So trying to remind you to keep track of your save often so that you don't lose any progress as you're working. This section also doesn't need a background, so let's just go ahead and disable the background. That makes each item a little bit wider because it can take up the full width of the page then. So there you go. We've got a pretty robust page now that shows a variety of the different kinds of things that Team 17 makes. You can always keep fiddling with the tools and apply different sections, different types. Play with a lot of these different options in here if you want to add different kinds of things to your page. And then the next step is when you're ready to set this live, again, I'll save. There's a publish tab, so I'll need to publish this page. The publishing step itself doesn't make anything visible anywhere. It just means that now the store has access to this data. And if I go back to dashboard by clicking in the upper left-hand corner of the editor, it's going to destroy my live preview because that was dependent on the editor being open. And you'll see now in the Creator Home V2 dashboard, there's a new entry called the new default. It is marked as unlisted, but I can set it now as active, and that it will prompt you and make sure that's what you want to do. And once I do that, now this new default is the default homepage. So if I go back here to featured, which is the homepage for Team 17, I'll see my lovely new creation and its purple background and all of that glory. You'll notice that in our editor, there were two sections that appeared here for wish lists and recommendations. And I don't see those sections at all because it has no wish lists or recommendations for me. But if I were signed in with a different account, then I might have some recommendations that Steam is generating. And, maybe I already wishlist a game from Team 17, so it would remind me of that fact here too. And so there's your fancy new page. That's all there is to it. Thanks for joining us. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to use the support link at the top of the Steamworks website and pass us any feedback, questions, and we'll be happy to answer. Until next time.